What's going on, everyone? It's Sean with another Tesla video, and in this one I've got a really exciting one. I'm here in South Denver meeting up with a fellow Tesla owner, Eddie Haskell. He used to be a Model S owner, but now he is a Model 3 owner. Eddie, how are you doing today?
I'm great and a happy Model 3 owner.
Yes, absolutely. So this video, we're going to just talk about some of your initial impressions of moving from the Model S, which is a fantastic car. Which one did you have, by the way?
70D.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the differences between that and then moving to a Model 3. All right, so Eddie, new owner of a Model 3, congratulations on getting this thing finally. I know that it was a little bit of a process to get delivery of this with a few moving of the dates of delivery.
Right.
You got kind of caught up in the chaos, the organized chaos of end of quarter delivery.
Right.
But now you're happy. You're a happy Model 3 owner, correct?
I love it. The second I got it, it erased all of the angst immediately.
Right. It's amazing. Just never mind
Gone.
those droids.
Yes.
So you've got you used to have a Model S.
Yep.
What size battery did you have?
I had the 70D.
70D.
Yep.
And what year was that one?
That was a 2015 November, so
old nose cone,
Yep.
old front bumper. You had, what color interior was it? Was it tan?
Black.
It was black, okay.
Yep. So identical to the car I got, which people are giving me a little grief for. It's like, mix it up. It's like, why would you? I love it.
Yeah, so exact same exterior
Exact same
color.
exterior,
Look at that.
exact same interior.
I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Love it.
So you're going from quite a bit of a larger car
Yep.
to a smaller car. What have been your initial impressions of the exterior in terms of navigation, in terms of being able to move this thing around? Do you
Yeah.
find that it's better?
Yes, much. I like it. My friend kind of summed it up. He said the S felt like a Mercedes.
Okay.
This feels like a BMW M3. It's
Got
a
it.
driving car.
Yep.
And it feels more nimble.
Yes.
Parking is so much easier because you don't have that gigantic long nose that the S had. And man, I like it better.
Storage, in terms of storage, front trunk, rear trunk, do you notice any difference there?
The front trunk's a little smaller. It's not quite as deep, but being a D on the Model S, you had the big hump in there anyway.
Yeah.
But it was deeper.
Yeah.
The back feels the same to me. The
Okay.
only thing I can see being a challenge is not being a hatchback. You got to get it through the opening.
Less entry
Right.
to put things in.
So as I'm putting things in, on those Home Depot runs, which these cars were never made for, but we use them that way.
Right.
I've been able to cramp things into the Model S I never would have imagined would fit in a car. It'll be interesting to see if that hole will allow me to continue to do that. But interior with the seats down, it feels like almost the same size.
I've heard a lot of mixed reviews and opinions about the door handles. What do you think about those hockey stick door handles?
Funny that you ask, because I think today is the day I finally became
You got
frustrated.
the hang of it?
with- No,
Okay, got it. No.
Finally, after this car could have done nothing
Yes.
for a week, and I would just go, oh, but it's my Model S or my Model 3. But now it's starting to become my car.
Interesting.
And it's the biggest frustration I have is with the app. They need to have the app unlock the car
Got it.
as you approach.
Okay.
It doesn't. It unlocks on the door handle.
Got it.
So it's a
when you grab the
two-step.
door handle, then it unlocks?
Then it unlocks.
Interesting.
It's not a walk-up
Okay.
unlock like the Model S was.
Got it.
So the experience now is walk up,
Yes.
thumb it,
Yep.
which unlocks the car.
Yep.
Then you have to kind of do it again to
Got it.
open
Yep.
the car. So it would be nice, and it would be easy to do in a software update.
Sure.
To just have as you approach in the car. The other thing is it gives you no signal that it's recognized your app when you walk up.
Yep.
So when you walk up to the car, you thumb around. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't,
Yeah.
and it's fumbly.
Now now you can enable a honk when it locks, correct?
Yes.
So maybe it would be nice to, as you're approaching,
just
to
give you the
signify
honk.
that
Yep.
it recognizes you in proximity.
Exactly.
It's unlocked.
And then I think your procedure would be thumb,
Yeah.
grab, done.
Okay.
Yeah.
All this could be fixed if they just introduced a key fob, correct?
Yes. I don't know if I want a key fob now.
Really?
I have nothing in my pockets right now.
Yes.
Except my chapstick.
Yep.
And I think if the app works,
Yep.
As you approach the car, it gives you a honk, or maybe the mirrors unfold or something to give you a signal, and then you just pop in and get it.
Yep.
The card works great, but I keep it in my wallet, so I got to dig in and pull it out. I don't know. I don't know if I'm a fob fan. So we'll see when it becomes available.
My experience with Model 3s has always been with the key card, because someone's been loaning me the car to test out or do a review, and so my only experience has been the key card and not the mobile app, and I've been quite critical of the key card because it's really cumbersome to have to pull it out, put it on the B-pillar, unlock the car, get in, put the key card in the middle console to put it in drive, and then go. Coming from an owner of an S where you have the key fob in your pocket the whole time, it just happens automatically. But in terms of the door handles and the process of pushing your thumb in to get the thinner portion of it out, you don't mind it?
I don't. It is a little clumsy though, because it's a two-part process where in a normal car you would grab, thumb. This you have to thumb before you can grab, and I find myself kind of doing it in two steps: thumb, then. I'm sure I'll get used to it, but it's unique or odd, whichever you want to use.
Right. So in terms of fit and finish, early Model S's clearly had some opportunities for improvement. This being a new car, what's your initial impressions been of fit and finish? Has it been good, positive?
Yeah, I'm not that guy that walks around and looks at
measures
every gap.
every
Yeah, I walk up to the car and I go, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. If there was a paint swirl, I'd notice it. If there was a glaring panel gap, I'd notice that. So I'm a pretty easy Tesla customer in that I just walk, I look around, nothing looks broken, and I'm excited and I jump in and I go away. It's never bothered me. On my S, I didn't notice any. I haven't noticed anything that I would even call attention to.
I've seen some people some owners who've taken delivery of their 3 recently talk about the paint job. I did a walk around and I didn't notice any glaring issues, flaws, bubbles.
No,
I mean, have you seen?
Not at all. And this will be my first. I picked it up and there was an issue with getting my insurance at the dealership, which made the delivery process about an hour and a half.
Sure.
So it was getting dark when I got the car and I was just, let me have it. And then last weekend we just ran and didn't actually bother. I haven't hand washed it yet. So that's when I'd normally see things like that. But if it, again, were bad enough for me to see, I would have seen it by now.
In terms of range, I mean, you've taken quite a significant step up from your old S, this 70D, right, to this long range 75 kilowatt hour Model 3, which gives you about 310 miles. What are your thoughts about that?
Love it. I mean, I think 310 is the sweet spot where it just doesn't matter. The 240 that my S has, in the winter, as you know, cold weather, in Denver, going uphill, there are some spots where you can't get 175 out of it. And they tend to space superchargers in the 150 to 175 range. And if you get a long gap, I've rolled into some superchargers with 2%.
Right.
And I feel like, wow, that was at 240. How will I ever even get tight on 310?
Yeah, I've had loaners with 300 plus miles, Model S mostly, and I feel like I can just drive around all day, go as fast as I want within reason, and not have to worry about range, end up coming home with plenty, 100 plus miles of range. And so, for 300 plus miles, I think that's great for most people.
Yeah, I feel like the S70, I would, friends would say, should I get one? And it's like, unless you still have to think about it in that car. You have to think about your trips, how much you charge in the morning, because I'm commuting now the S, I would typically charge to 70%. So for that commute, I started bumping it to 80.
Yeah.
If I go up to work and come home, I would roll in with about 20. But if I was house shopping and I would drive around on my lunch hour, I rolled home at 3 a couple of times. So I feel now I since started charging that one to 90, which helps.
Yeah.
But with this, I'm back at an 80% daily charge, and I roll in at 20 every evening.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So let's go ahead and jump in the car and get some of your impressions of how the performance and interior is in comparison to your old S.
Yes.
So what's been your impression of the interior of the car? It's quite a bit different because you've got this one screen that controls everything, right? It's your speedometer, it's your map, it's your music, it's everything. Coming from the S, which you have the 17-inch, and you also have the display behind the steering wheel. How is that?
It took surprisingly very little time to get used to it. What you realize once you get used to it is how much garbage normal cars put in front of you. It's like your speed, your RPMs, your water temperature, your gas gauge. and it kind of feels like when I go back to the S that it's kind of yelling at me.
Yeah.
Where with this,
it's busy.
Yeah,
the old is busy. This is very simple.
Exactly. And it's there when you need it. People say, well, you have to look over for your speedometer. No, it's right there.
It's at, I found that this having the speed at that eye level is a little bit less of a distance to look to than having it behind the steering wheel.
Yes, and the dirty little secret is I realized once I went back into the S and drove it, I can't see the speedometer for the steering wheel.
Right.
So when I want to know how fast I'm going, I duck down or lift up, and this is really a better place for it.
Size, space-wise on the interior of the cabin, how do you feel? Is it noticeable that it's smaller on the inside, or do you not notice at all?
At all. I don't.
Yeah.
I really don't feel like, width-wise that I have any shoulder issues. It seems as roomy inside to me as the S. If you asked me to tell you where it was smaller, I don't think I could.
Okay. That's great. That's a good sign. When I first got into one, I could tell that my shoulders were a bit closer to the sides of the car, the left side of the car, but headroom is surprisingly generous.
My buddy Justin was with me for delivery last weekend, and he's 6'6", I believe.
Oh, wow.
And he was very curious. He has a Model X, and was very curious how the 3 would work. And one of the things is having the glass roof. You don't have the thickness of the headliner. And even if you did, it would have been fine, but he had plenty of room, and decided that even at a 6'6" guy, it's a very viable car for him.
Absolutely. A lot of people have said that there's more visibility out the windshield.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I took a friend for a ride last night, and that was the thing he just kept saying. Now, he had driven my S. He's looking at buying a Tesla of some sort, and saw a Model 3 and called me and said, hey, I just saw a Model 3. I think I like it better. And I said, I've got one ordered.
Yeah.
So I saw him last night, and he drove it and just kept commenting about the visibility everywhere. Almost bubble-like visibility, because you've got this giant windshield. You have a shorter nose and just no blind spots. I really like the visibility, and I think maybe the glass roof gives you an implied visibility, someplace you're never going to be looking.
Sure.
But you could.
Yeah. HVAC has been completely redesigned with the Model 3. What do you think about it? Is it easier to adjust?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's a great party trick when you get somebody in that has never been in, and you see, I've got version 9 now, and in version 9 they've gone from the 2 dots you adjust to these waves of air in an animation, and people see that and they're like, shut up, because as you move it, you see the airflow where it's going to go inside the vehicle, and it looks great. But yeah, it took me just a couple of minutes to have it blowing right in my face, then pinch it to avoid my face, so I've got air on both sides. I really like the way that the HVAC's set up in this.
Really great. Touchscreen. When driving, is it more challenging? Do you notice a difference in terms of reaching for the 17-inch screen on the S versus this 15-inch screen? Is there any ease? Is it easier? Is it more difficult?
It is easier. The thing I've noticed, and again, I still have my Model S for a couple of months, and so when I go back to it, the biggest thing that strikes me is how far down you have to go. Mm-hmm. Like if you want to adjust the temperature or your seats or anything, you've got to reach down to the bottom of the console, where with this, everything is right no lower than here as you reach over. And I do like that. Now, the more compact screen makes your touch spots smaller, and I've noticed on a couple of things, like with media, if you want to thumbs up or thumbs down a song, you kind of have to really hone in because the touch targets are a little bit smaller. And if I had criticism or constructive criticism on the UI, it would be to make the touch spots a little bigger, but I know that they're really looking for an aesthetic, which sometimes you have to trade. You don't want big old buttons.
Right.
And so that makes it a little more difficult, but I think also the muscle memory, once I realize where what I want lives, I'll just go straight to it.
Right. All right, so we're at a stoplight here. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the performance. What do you think about it, and how does it compare to your 70D?
It's quicker. It feels, overall, the car feels much more nimble. In turns, it feels tighter. It feels more like a sports car, where I felt like the S was more of a luxury sedan. And everything's tighter. The acceleration is just ridiculously quicker than the Model S. And
it feels lighter.
Yeah, it does. It feels like you have the same power, actually probably more, because it's a 70, this is a 75. You've got a little bit more power, but it feels lighter. It just really is an exhilarating feeling when you do a launch, and you feel more connected to the road.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of, when you do a launch from a stop sign, it feels more exciting because you're moving less car.
Yeah, it's really an approachable car. It doesn't take long to figure out how to maneuver and navigate the car. Really, I mean, it's not complex. There's not a lot of buttons or dials.
No.
You just get in and you drive it. Sort of reminds me of the iPhone. You know, pre-iPhone, you had a lot of buttons and scrollies, and they came out with just a single screen, and everything was on the screen. Yeah,
I do feel like it shares a lot of that design aesthetic. That also, the iPhone was pretty much the first one that didn't come with any instructions. It had that little bifold piece of paper that told you where to go to get instructions online. And I feel like the car, and maybe to its detriment a little bit, there's not a real good onboarding process, especially as quick as they are with deliveries. When I took delivery of my Model S 3 years ago, they blocked me 2 hours with a delivery specialist.
Wow.
And we used it, and they went over the car, and here's how you charge it, and here's that. When I picked this one up, well, and in fairness, they said, how familiar are you with Tesla?
You had a jump start already.
Well, I host a Tesla podcast, so I probably don't need any hand-holding.
Yes.
And they said, we're going to trust you.
Yep.
Here's your key. And so I don't know if that experience would be different for someone who's a first-timer, but there's not a lot of explanation on how to do some things. And I had to figure some of it out, but it's pretty easy. The owner's manual's a button on the screen.
You know, it would be a really strong move by Tesla is if they did an on-screen tutorial.
It would be great.
It would just navigate you through how to turn on and off things, how to put the car in drive. A lot of the things that I found myself telling new owners at the end of the quarter, they should just video, create some videos and allow users to to self-pace themselves through learning about the car from the 15-inch screen.
It would be great, iPhone does that. It would be great if when you got the car, there was a tutorial built in, and an arrow moved to the button you're supposed to push, or it lit up in green or whatever, and it walked you through those processes. Yes. I think that would be extremely helpful. And after you walked through it a couple of times, you could click the "Don't show me this again," and it went away. And I think that would be a really good idea, because you can read it in a user's manual. And for me, I want to be doing it while I'm reading about it.
Yeah, you're going to have better muscle memory if you're doing the actual thing that it's teaching you to do.
It's a great idea. Tweet Elon.
There we go. I'll do that. What about any issues? Have you had any issues with the car with the last week or two that you've had it?
I've had a couple. First of all, I had some interesting delivery issues in that my car was registered to someone else.
Okay.
When I picked it up. We got that resolved. Don't know why but it was part of that delivery madness. My original delivery date was September 27th, which is squeaking it in for the end of the quarter. They canceled that about 5 days out, but when I got this car on October 12th, it had been registered on September 27th to someone else. Mm-hmm. That caused a few issues with getting the app set up, but minimal. But I didn't have Autopilot.
Okay. Yep.
I had
but
bought
you had ordered it. Yep.
I ordered it, and I kept waiting for the cameras to calibrate, and then I realized that when I tried to put it in Autopilot, it wasn't telling me wait because the cameras need to calibrate. And I finally realized at the end of the second day with 230 miles on it, I don't have Autopilot. So I called a friend of mine who works in service for Tesla, which, by the way, if you can have a friend who works in service for Tesla, it beats a 40-minute wait time on the 800 number. He activated it for me on Tuesday when he got back to work, and it worked flawlessly. It was just a push over-the-air update. But they missed that. Now, I don't know if that's because maybe the person who bought it before me didn't order it.
I think that's exactly what it was.
And that seems like a logical description. Now, the other thing that absolutely annoys me is, and it's pretty well documented online with people complaining about it, is the turn signal for the Model 3 doesn't have a détente when you go all the way down.
Right.
A short touch puts the blinker on 3 times for a lane change, and if you go all the way down, it returns to the center, but it's locked on for a turn. It's near impossible to do a left lane change. Mm-hmm. So what happens? I don't need any more help being an old man. I put on a left turn signal, and I'm that guy that has my blinker on for 20 miles.
So you don't realize that it's still on.
You don't realize it, and then typically, if you go the same direction again, it will cancel it. Part of the bug is that doesn't work. So you have to go to a right turn signal, which if you go too far, puts your right turn signal on. So if I just do a tap for a 3, for a 1, 2, 3, you can see the signal is still on, stays on, and the only way to cancel it is
so even though you're doing a light tap, it still stays on?
Yeah.
That must be something new, because I did pick up on that when I've spent time with the 3, where a light tap would do the short duration, and a harder one would do the longer.
And it would be nice if it was software fixable. A lot of the people online are saying they had to have the stock replaced. And I did get a tip online. Tesla owners are probably the most forgiving of flaws, because we just love the cars and we want to continue to love them. So what they pointed out is that when you make a right lane change, you use 1 finger up. When you make a left lane change, you use 3 down. And they said, try using 1 finger, just your middle finger, for a left turn signal, and it works. I can't believe it, but you shouldn't have to do that. So while it's new and, under warranty, I'm going to get a new turn stock, because if somebody else drives it, they do the same thing. They do a lane change, it sticks on, and
So do you think they've done, or they're installing a new turn stock?
That's what several people online on the forums have said, is that they had the turn signal stock or switch replaced.
Got it.
And there are so many things. It surprised me when my Model S magically got hill hold, and all you had to do is push harder down on the brake pedal. And being a techie, I thought, wow, how does that switch know that there's a software update? So they had to, when they built the car, know that switch had to have two positions.
Yep.
And so I kind of wondered about that with the turn signal, is if that's a faulty switch that's not sensing pressure properly, or if they could go in software and turn that number down, what percentage you pushed it to 10% instead of 4 or whatever. And that may be, I certainly hope they can do that.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it was just a software change.
Yeah, and I have a seat issue that when we get stopped again, I'll show you. If I shift in my seat, I get this springy, oh, there's that blinker on. I get this really boingy spring sound that if you push down on one cheek versus the other, it's almost like a spring isn't attached, or it's a faulty seat. But it's horrible. It's just, and I notice it when I'm getting my phone out of my pocket and I put, I lean over. You just get this boing, and
interesting.
That's completely unacceptable. I'm hoping that they can. That they left a screw out or something. I'd hate to think I have to get a whole new seat, but that's really the only two issues that I've had.
Scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your overall experience of ownership of a Model 3?
You know what? One thing I'm sorely disappointed with is the volume control on the stereo no longer displays a number. It's just a slider.
Right.
It can't go to 11 anymore. I'd give it an 11.
That's great.
I love it. If I could break it down, performance 10. I don't know that it could be a better car. Features 10. Delivery process, tech 3 or 4. They've got to do better. I have a web browser that if I type in a Google search and I say Tesla, it goes T E. It's like, come on, guys. This is a tech-based car. Let's get that better. I would say every day have a loading error on a song I'm listening to or a podcast, and that's been that way since I got my Model S. So you would think they would fix those things. There are a few issues like that you really just want to say, guys, you can make a car that drives itself. Why can't you remember where I was in the podcast I was listening to? So I like to complain about that because it's so frustrating when it happens, and then you go back to, as opposed to the web browser in your Chevy. Okay.
You're right, yeah. Light years ahead.
Yes, I mean, we have a web browser in our car. How can we complain that it's slow?
Right.
So, if I could segregate it all out, but then I don't know how I can give the tech a 3 and still end up with an average of a 10 for the car. Clearly everything else is a 12.
Right. Okay, so last thing about the interior performance of the car, you had Autopilot 1 in your 70D Model S.
Yep.
Now you've got AP 2.5, the best of the best, the most recent. How does it perform? How do they compare?
You know what? The S always seemed a little bit smoother. Maybe, and I thought about this as I was driving home yesterday on Autopilot, maybe it was smoother because it was less sure. It seemed to move more gently and accelerate more gently. And while I saw that as more gentle, maybe it was more cautious, where Autopilot 2 knows that it's good enough, and it just throttles it up and changes the lane like, I got this, man. So I feel like it's a little more confident.
I agree.
I had a friend that had... would have been AP 2.5 as well, early on. This would have been early this year in his Model X. And it was a little jerky. It tended to wave a little bit in lanes. It'd hug a line, and you're like, why wouldn't you just stay in the middle? This seems so much smoother. It's a wonderful experience. I had a Delta airline pilot driving it last night, and he's like, this is why I'm buying a Tesla, because I have adaptive cruise on other vehicles. This is the only vehicle you can buy that has this level of autopilot, and I'm confident he's going to order one probably within a week or two.
It's great.
But for an airline pilot to use autopilot and even
be impressed.
Yeah, and even the way it works like an airliner, he was on auto steer and said, well, how do I take control? I was like, how do you take control in a 757? He's like, I move the yoke. I was like, and he moved the steering wheel and doom,
disengaged,
and he's driving it again. So I think an endorsement from an airline pilot on how great autopilot is pretty strong.
I agree, 100%. Well, that wraps up the review and comparison between the Model S and the Model 3 from Eddie Haskell. Eddie, thank you so much for giving us the walkthrough.
Oh, my pleasure. I love preaching about Tesla.
So you've got a friend who run a Tesla podcast. Why don't you tell our viewers about that?
It's called Plug Your Ride. We've just done our 91st episode last week, which, by the way, is a good one. It's over an hour long, and it's the whole story of the delivery process, including the pre-registration and the issues that we had up front. Justin Riley, a friend of mine in Seattle, co-hosts it with me typically, but this week actually flew down for the delivery, so we were both in the studio together. Cool. And we have fun. We do a little recap of the news of Tesla each week, but more so is just share stories. And I think that's what kind of makes us different from some of the other ones, is it's just a couple of guys who love Teslas talking about things good or bad that we've run across, but make no mistake, we are fanboys.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. If you found this one interesting and valuable, consider subscribing and liking, and I'll see you on the next video.